Welcome back to part two of how to run a multi-million dollar multifamily portfolio with Ashley Wilson and Rayna Mike. In this episode, they will speak about how often the asset manager should visit their properties, transparency with property management, and much more. Enjoy the show. In order to ensure that transparency is there, how often should an asset manager visit the property?
That is a very interesting question. In today's world, you can do so many Zoom calls all the time, but personal visit, physical visit actually, of a property, I would suggest, in my experience, at least once a month. Even if there is no problems, everything has been handled perfectly over the phone, over Zoom, over conference calls, you still need to go at least once a month. That's my own personal opinion.
I think it's a combination of understanding where the project is in the process of, if you're talking about a core plus asset that's stabilized or a value add that's now unstabilized versus a property that you've just acquired and maybe you're implementing the CapEx strategy. I think there is a algorithm based off of your experience with a property management company. Is this a property management company and team you've worked with previously and have gone full cycle on a similar business plan that they've executed on? Or is this a new property management company, a new market, new everything? I think the more newness factor, I completely agree with Rayna here that you need to be there at least once a month. When you have a more established property management company and also the utilization of technology with Zoom and FaceTime and videos and smart sheets and all of those other components, I think you can definitely push it out a little bit further. We have a rule of thumb that each property needs to be visited at minimum once a quarter. And that is all contingent upon where they are within the business strategy. But that's also too because of the fact that we have utilized the same property management company across our entire portfolio. And we have a very strong track record with our property management company. So there's a trust factor built in. But with respect to physical visiting, but then we have weekly calls on every single property. And we also utilize smart documents with videos of progress updates across the property. And we're pretty thorough on our metrics. So in terms of accessing the property through supportive technology resources, coupled with the fact that we have full access to our property management software and we can go in and pull reports down to individual receipts. So I can go into a GL code, or if you're looking at your P&L, I can literally go into that account and see, we have a total expense charge, let's say for within R&M of, let's say $5,000 for the month. I can click within there and then I can see it by category, and then I can actually pull the receipts on the property. So some of which we have in terms of technology today, in terms of auditing certain sites, making sure that the leases correspond, etc. All of those things can typically be audited from afar. And then the utilization of technology on your CapEx integration is now getting to the point where we can utilize those resources too. So we haven't been going to the property as frequently as Rayna suggests, but I don't think there is a drawback besides, expense, but that's a drop in the ocean for coming to your property more frequently.
Ashley just said that she communicates weekly with the property management company. Rayna, what about you?
Absolutely. Weekly communications, weekly calls are crucial with clearing up issues and finding solutions and adjusting as we go. And I agree with Ashley, especially if we're doing major renovations on value add. Some of our assets we buy 100% vacant and it's a complete remodel. It's very important we do those twice a week even, and sometimes even 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we would go to the property every couple of weeks, at least twice a month, if not more often. If they're in our immediate area, we would drive there almost every other day to see, even for 15 minutes, just to drive through the property, see what is going on, who is there, who is not there, and assess the situation, maybe even snap a few pictures, or maybe even do a drone, depending.
Along with those weekly calls, should you visit the property announced or unannounced?
Both, both.
Both,
And not
absolutely.
and not only announced and
Mhm.
unannounced, I send people that they don't know all the time.
Absolutely. All
And
the
I
time.
secret shop my own properties all the time.
Yes, yes. I call it, we do a lot of detective work, ladies and gentlemen. We are absolutely PIs. We're private detectives. We're James Bond in female form. And, and we do it. We send agents, we send unknown people. We do it all. We literally do it all.
Same, trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Thank you, Mr. Reagan. Thank you, Mr. Reagan.
So when you make that, when you get there on that announced or unannounced visit, what do you do with your visit?
It varies by whether or not it's announced or unannounced. So on an announced visit, we typically have an agenda that we're trying to achieve in advance. Now, other things come up while we're there and we have time for miscellaneous items, but we are very, just like we have an agenda every single week. I agree with Rayna that we actually talk informally probably every single day with our property management company, but formally we have a scheduled meeting once a week in which we cover certain issues on the properties, standing topics. So the same applies for when we go to the site. We're looking for certain items. We're checking up on certain processes, et cetera. We're scheduling punch lists on CapEx walks, just looking at the overall operations of the property. We are there the night before and we drive the property the night before, always checking on safety issues with respect to lighting. You're not going to be able to see the lighting during the day. The lighting is the most important and the easiest thing you can control at minimizing crime. In terms of driving the property at night, driving the backside of the property, if you're afraid to drive the backside of the property, how do you think people are going to rent from you? So you should be able to drive your entire property. Your property should be lit up like a Christmas tree and all of your gates working, etc. You know, check on the property. We do that every single time. We also secret shop our competitor properties too, even though we have market surveys done pretty frequently, minimum once a month, but sometimes we have it done more frequent than that. Just seeing, you know, from our perspective, not relying solely on the property management company's perspective of how our property compares to other properties, but we'll do things like that. We'll look at the surrounding area. Let's say that there's construction coming down the street. How is that going to impact our leasing operations? That's something that we should plan for in advance. Maybe there's a fire down the street. We can target those residents and try to attract them onto our property, give them discounts to get them to move, help them with moving expenses, whatever. Property managers are expected to be amazing at sales, amazing at organization, amazing at admin, amazing at managing contractors and packages and people. There's too many things that they are responsible for doing. So coming in and just kind of gently reminding, oh yeah, can you focus on this for a little bit and help, you know, with this aspect of the property? It's just a good friendly reminder to, you know, keep operations tight. When unannounced though, especially if I'm sending someone to secret shop, I'm asking them to act as a prospective tenant. And then I'm asking them to go in and give me a full report on how they were treated, where, you know, what things were said by the leasing agent, how the whole interaction worked, what units they sent, were the units clean, was the path that they walked on clean, were there any issues that you saw during the tour? And then I might even probe them with questions that, or prompt them with questions that they can ask the leasing agent or property manager to see what the property manager will say. So if we have a ton of construction going on, maybe say, wow, it's really loud. Like it sounds, you know, like this is going to be, you know, really annoying to live here while this is all going on. Well, how does the property manager address that question? So those are things that are important in terms of the closing ratio. So we have like all these metrics in terms of leads and how they convert. Do they come on the property and then tour? And then from tour, do they fill out an application? And then, are they accepted or denied? And we have certain conversion metrics we need to hit at each of those parts of the funnel. So knowing how your on-site is able to close could be a huge reason why you're not closing leases. So those are some examples.
All right. So Rayna, when you get there for a visit, are there certain documents or anything that you're looking for?
Sometimes I would be looking for how many people literally walked into the office, physically walked. Did they get the sign in? Did they take a tour? If they did, what were their comments? Did they ask the visitor to give them a short survey? We usually give Starbucks cards if you complete our survey right on the spot, not completing it later online, because we know that many people would forget and not do the survey. Just simple 5-question survey. If you complete it right here, we have a Starbucks card for you. We have always those ready. That's one of the things I would be looking for. I would be looking for other things, such as, interestingly enough, Ashley mentioned we had a fire a couple of months ago on a huge building not too far from one of our buildings. And we went there physically. A couple of people went there physically and we went into their management office, into their property management office, and invited those residents to come and live with us, because it was major fire. It burned, it was over 200 unit property. It burned maybe 3/4 of it.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, huge fire. And I don't know why they were not able to put it out or anything like that. I didn't know any details, but I knew it was a huge devastation for the property. And we went there, we worked with them, and we were able to bring maybe about 40 residents that came to us, because the rebuild of that property is still taking place. It's going to take over 18 months to rebuild it. And once we got them in, we don't know if they would ever go back or anything like that. It's interestingly enough, Ashley, you mentioned that. And we've done things like that. We're watching the news sometimes. Not that we like watching mainstream news, but sometimes mainstream news would bring us events like that. And there was flooding once, and we went to that property as well. So I remember all kinds of circumstances that we were able to benefit from. And the lighting, I could not agree with you more, Ashley. The first thing we look at any property we acquire is, how is the lighting? How much can we improve that? And do we have all stairwells well lit to absolutely deter crime? Because crime happens in the dark. I always say that all bad people come out after midnight. So it's very, very important. Drive your property at night when it's dark. Look at everything. Look whether the gates are closing and everything is quiet. And it's super, super important. I mean, you can have security and all that, but you can prevent a lot of that by being proactive in making the right CapEx so it can secure, so everybody feels secure. Creating a safe and secure place for people to live is our goal. I mean, all of us, we are there to make profit, no question about that, but creating and secure environment, that's why I am in Bakersfield today, because I love a property we're acquiring here. I'm not going to do any advertisement or anything, but it's going to be the crown jewel of our portfolio. and it's core plus, and we're loving this more than anything. Are we going to do more value add? I'm sure we are. We are value add junkies, but
So, with finding leads and performing underwriting, what are the week to week and month to month duties of an asset manager?
I mean, honestly, that is a loaded question because we could probably spend the entire night talking about the answer to this. So let me try to talk about it in terms of like a macro level, which is the asset manager is ultimately responsible for implementing the business plan. So whatever that business plan is, whether it's keeping a property stabilized, whether it's a lease up, whether it's student housing, and you're responsible for not only the pre-lease, but a quick turnover and executing that with high proficiency to a value add, where you're executing a business plan pretty quickly and restabilizing a property. There are so many different responsibilities under each of those buckets. But ultimately, the asset manager takes kind of the playbook, which is something that the underwriter, asset manager, property management company all come together and they create a plan and a structure. And then from there, the asset manager is ultimately responsible for the execution and the delivery of that, because that is the key person who makes sure that the investor capital is protected. Because at the end of the day, that is the primary focus. As Rayna mentioned, yes, we want to create a safe environment, and that's how we do it. But the purpose is to maximize and protect the investor's capital. An asset manager kind of has dual roles. They have a role in terms of their ability to execute on this business plan, but they're doing it for the reason of safeguarding the investment.
I totally agree with Ashley. I'm going to piggyback on that the asset manager has to juggle so many hats that we have to be a master, literally an absolute master in juggling those hats, from protecting the investor's capital and maximizing that investor's capital to keeping everyone that lives with us, thousands of people. We have villages, we have whole village living on one property, small little towns. To that, it's so encompassing, it's so huge that as Ashley said, we can sit here for days and talk about from the underwriting, when the underwriter gives us a lead that we might think that there is potential there, to the closing of that lead, to is thousands of tasks that we literally have to perform. Those hats sometimes could be very tricky, very, very tricky. And we have to balance all that. It's a very complex enterprise. And it comes with experience, comes with having the right team to help you.